What's good? It's your boy Nova ZDNT coming back with another one for you. We're on the road to 100, so if you could like, subscribe, share the video, join the tribe. I'll get something better for that. I don't know. I haven't thought of a good pun that goes with the name of the channel yet. If you haven't seen this yet, it's not a new video. We're gonna follow. It's our boy Kip Kami 11. I hope I'm saying that right. He did not an expose, it's like a feature of LeBron James's Ipromise schools over in Akron, right? Now, one of the things, I'm big into watering the grass where you are. If you saw my last couple videos, right, I mentioned it a lot, right? And LeBron took steps to try to do that. Now, I watched a little bit of this video, not the whole thing, but a decent amount. So some of this stuff's gonna be fresh, some is gonna be completely stuff I've already thought about, right? You could surmise what the faults in this school are going to be without needing to watch this video, but I think I'm going to take it upon myself to kind of add a little bit to this video before certain bad actors get to it, and to just say like, oh, see, here's proof that doesn't matter how much money you put into certain neighborhoods and things of that nature, a certain type of person just can't elevate themselves past a certain point. So if you want to take a second, pause, think about why you think overfunded public schooling wouldn't succeed. Write it down on a piece of paper or drop it in the comments with the timestamp of where I am right now before you watch the rest of the video. Then go back to your comment and see if you were right, because I formulated why I thought I'd be right at the beginning, and a little bit into the video kind of let me know I was already right, but it's still a great watch, riveting watch. Please go like and subscribe to the, I know it says I'm not subscribed on this one, right, because you can see, you probably can or can't see what I got going on there. This is a different account, right? But support creators, including myself, because I only got 10 subscribers, you know what I'm saying? Jump on the bandwagon before we get anywhere. And let's go ahead and see what Kip has to say about the LeBron James Ipromise schools. Let's go ahead and get started.
One child passed the state test in math, not one.
Principal of a LeBron James Ipromise school in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
A quote, death note was found on the school grounds, and that note found sometime last week had a list.
I ain't gonna hold you like that. Just put a picture up if you're not watching, if you're listening to this on your phone. And if it actually said death note on it, boy, I ain't gonna lie. Hey, again, I said this in my video, one of them, a couple videos I made where it's black people doing stuff in white fields. Man, I said this about Andrew Tate. Like it's sometimes good to see young black people excelling in fields that normally white people dominate in. If you get what I'm getting about the whole writing in the death note, you feel me? I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, like, hey, it's sometimes good to see representation. You feel what I'm saying?
Of names of teachers and students who work and attend the school.
The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there.
What's up, y'all? I'm Kip Kami 11, and I'm here in Akron, Ohio to find out why is LeBron James's Ipromise school failing? Well, to begin, we have to go back to 2004. Fresh out of Akron, Ohio, LeBron James let all the naysayers know that he was the truth. After a successful Rookie of the Year campaign and an $87 million Nike deal, LeBron was a far cry away from where he was even just a year ago. Still possessing a strong allegiance to Akron, LeBron founded the LeBron James Family Foundation as a 19-year-old as a way to help.
I know I interrupted soon, but I remember LeBron talking a couple years ago about him not accepting that Adidas deal because Nike was going to give him more creative control and more of a stake, because Reebok had everything at the time. I still have my Cardinals Reebok jersey sitting up here, right? They were ahead of their game, or they were at the top of their game, and Nike, they were still dominant, don't get me wrong, but they weren't where Reebok was globally. And he said he didn't sign Reebok, and I'm hurt because there's a world in which I could wear some questions, some answers, and some LeBrons, all with that Reebok logo on it, and oh man, ooh, how kids see Champion today. Like, we saw Champion as poor people stuff back in the day, right? And it's in their zeitgeist, right? Reebok to me will never not be nostalgic. Like, I still rock every Sunday before a Cardinals game. I'll wear Reeboks because that's my tradition, right? Imagine if I could wear some LeBrons or some Ivos, before a Cardinals game. Hey, it'd be A1. There's a universe in which I am wearing Reebok branded LeBrons, and I envy that me.
help out struggling children like him when he was growing up. As his career accolades and profile grew, so did his organization. In 2005, LeBron hosted his first annual bike-a-thon, with kids from Akron riding along with him, joined by NBA friends Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. He continued to provide steadily for his community and took it up a notch in 2011, where he started the Ipromise initiative, a program that gave resources to underprivileged children in Akron in order to help them succeed with school. This would go from bikes to computers to even annual trips at amusement parks.
I love being in this program. It's life-changing.
After a few years, this initiative expanded to the Ipromise School as a way for kids who are at risk of flunking out and being claimed by Akron's tough environments, like LeBron almost famously was, to express themselves and be supported. It was a fantastic idea and the first of its kind. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's Donda Academy, all with varying levels of success. LeBron's school, however, was different. It was a fully public school as opposed to private school or academy, fully integrated into the Akron public school system, and operated as such. Only that it's got over 100 of LeBron's game-worn shoes inside, and over $1 million a year in extra funding. This was history in the making.
You listened, right? And I don't want this to, I hope you dropped a comment of what you thought it was with your timestamp, because I don't want this to influence what you think, right? But when I first heard this, a key thing that he said is that LeBron took kids who were already in danger of being left behind by the system, as you would, and then put those kids in this school. So it's lit. Just to give you a kind of I'm gonna throw arbitrary numbers out, right? Let's say there were 100 kids across Akron who were in danger of being flunked out of school. They were too far behind, what have you. They took all 100 of those kids and put them in one place. I don't know if you really thought about that, right? If anybody's from a, obviously, oh man, everything's not bad for you, blah, 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 shut up, coon, right? But like, people who grew up poor, not just white, not just black, not just Latino, if you grew up poor, this is not a race-specific thing, this is a class thing. You understand how much more difficult it was for you. Like, trauma is so funny, right? Like, you'll get to a certain age where you'll talk to people who, I wouldn't even say affluent, who are middle class, right? And they'll describe something that seems completely foreign to you, right? Like, they would, oh, where did you guys go for vacation during the summer? And you say, what do you mean vacation? Like, I was at home for summer vacation. They're like, right, you were off of school, but where did your family go during the summer to enjoy the vacation? And you're looking at them like, what are you talking about, man? I had like summer school camps. I just had, trying to get a meal, something like that. Like, what do you mean? And you don't realize that there is a class of people, not even rich people, just a class above you, who in their spare time, they do things. The spare time isn't spent figuring out how to maintain the baseline level of stuff they had during the school year, right? Just that alone lets you know, like, it's funny to me because I was in a situation, and now that I'm out of it, it's funny. But you realize how sad it is that you didn't have experience. Your worldview has been shaped by what you didn't have, as opposed to what you did have and then got to take for granted. You get what I'm saying?
Regular public school, LeBron James became the vice principal. But seriously, in America, there hasn't been a large-scale project like this. One of the reasons being, I'd be remiss not to mention, is that LeBron is, again, a private citizen attempting to revolutionize schooling for lower-income families and children. What he's doing is venturing into uncharted waters. Not only has he opened a school, he's opened up transitional housing down the block from the school for families and parents of students who might be experiencing bouts of homelessness. There are 50 families here who prior to this had struggles with finding housing. This initiative right here gives them a home. Less than 2 blocks away from the Ipromise school. There's also the Ipromise Apartments, geared for longer-term stay. Then there's House 330, where parents of kids are employed by the facilities to give them work. I talked to some of the people there, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about the foundation.
I was never accepted into LeBron Foundation. I don't think I would have known truly what to do in life.
There are schools out there that receive additional funding, but you're not gonna find them in America. You might find them in Japan.
This is a very nice school. What?
Or a private school. There's no place in
Quite know what he means by that. Like, when I first watched this, like, the additional funding, what was his goal when he said that, right? Like, if you're like me and you're older and you realize that, again, like I said, put your hypothesis in the thing. When you throw a bunch of money at something, it doesn't matter if you're not handling the root cause. Like, one of the problems with American politics and things of that nature is that we think if you just had a little bit more money, not just us, like me. If I had a little bit more money, I'd handle my shit. So like, subscribe, share. So in a year, when I got my shit handled, you'll go, oh man, wow, he was right. He really did handle it. Let me fail. They say God's strongest soldiers get his toughest test. Let me be one of the soldiers who gets a bunch of money all at once. And either you can hate on me after I fail, or you can be like, yeah, he was right. He knew what he was going to do when he got a bunch of money, right? But does he mean, if he meant like there are countries who are better suited funding wise through school, and they already handle it from top down, so the schooling system is way better than our laissez-faire, whatever happens schooling style is, then I can get with that. But just throwing more money at schools isn't the important part. Just look at Baltimore, and if you've made your hypothesis, you can already tell what mine is. Just throwing money at a problem doesn't solve the underlying problem.
America that's providing public school resources to a facility such as this, except for LeBron. So, what's the problem? Well, for starters, we have to address what exactly it was that made Ipromise so special in the first place. Beyond the grand name and media attention, there were genuine benefits that looked to be promising for children coming from different backgrounds. The inaugural principal for the school, Brandy Davis, an Akron native and 18-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, put it plainly in national news circuits. We are going to be that groundbreaking school that will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence. We are letting people know it is about true wraparound support, true family integration, and true compassion. Wraparound support, like a hug. That's one of the core tenets of the Ipromise School. It's the vibe that LeBron James and his, family foundation were looking to cultivate. It's plastered everywhere around the school, and it's even the first thing you see on the website, and also when you pull up to the school. The Ipromise School was looking to create an environment where kids at school felt like they were at home, and that their teachers were family. This was accomplished in a multitude of ways. On top of the taxpayer funding that Ipromise got as a part of the Akron School District, something for some reason that drew ire in the local press, there's about $1.5 million extra that the LeBron James Family Foundation provides for the Ipromise school budget. Given its rather elaborate interiors and miscellaneous costs that came with new features, the foundation spent approximately $2 million in the school's inception. This extra spending goes for creating smaller class sizes for children, free bikes, hiring tutors for after-school programs, free breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks, as well as an on-site family resource center, which includes a food drive, GED education classes, and lawyer services for parents of the Ipromise kids. Beyond that, there was a significantly longer school year from July to May, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., as well as 4 intervention specialists and an ESL teacher. All of this in Akron, home of one of the poorest school districts in the state. Then, of course, there are all the visits made by LeBron James, his shoes on the walls, and sometimes personalized messages and shout-outs from the king himself. To any kid, best school ever, right? The teachers thought so too.
Oh, I actually thought it was going to be amazing.
This is former Ipromise school teacher Jessica Gerber, a 12-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, who started at the Ipromise School in 2022. More on her later. The very first school year of the Ipromise School started with much fanfare. I mean, after all, it's literally the LeBron school. Everyone and their mother wanted to know how it would turn out. So much so that LeBron's media company, Spring Hill Productions, commissioned a documentary on the first year of the Ipromise School. You can find it on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing watch. In the first few minutes, you can see there's a great amount of resources that truly do provide relief for
one of the things, now this is unrelated to, this is tangentially related, right? So one of the things that in my workplace that I find so interesting is that people say like schools aren't teaching you anything, they just teach you how to become more liberal, right? One of the things I've noticed anecdotally that I like to talk to about with these people is that I don't think that's the truth, right? So I've got, this again, I'll give you an anecdote. It relates to this in a way, but it'll come full circle as we go, right? I have a buddy, right? One of my best friends. He used to be very idealistic. Like he thought that, hey, we were poor, we got out of there. We're not poor anymore. I mean, I'm still poor, right? But we're not the same kind of poor we used to be. And if everybody got a chance like us, then we'd be able to, the world would be a better place. And I got there for, I had kids younger than him. I had life kind of hit me harder before his life hit him hard. It still hasn't, right? But what I'm saying is like, I had life hit me realistically a lot sooner than he did because he made better decisions than me in that respect, right? And I told him like, man, once you get a little bit of bread, right? Like you when you go from eating ice sandwiches and sugar rice every day because you got to make it through, to being able to, have money in the bank. Like, when you don't have to save up to buy a thing, when you just buy it, and because next week you're gonna make enough to put it back. I guarantee you it's kind of gonna change your life. Like, right? Yeah, I'm not saying that you won't care as much anymore about the common man. I'm saying, what is this? Oh, Kinetic Sand for my kids, right? I'm saying that once you can handle what you have going on, but you know that you're only a couple paychecks away from that being slipping up, you'll realize that altruism isn't that cheap, right? The only people who can tell people how easy it is to do charity are people who have nothing or too much. The people in the middle have just enough to keep them and their families going, and they don't have the ability to worry about other people. And he kind of has realized this over the time, right? Like, where it used to be like, hey, if we just had this chance, oh man, we'd be able to do so much for some people. And now he's just on his own shit. He's on his own timing, right? Like, he gonna know who I am when I do this reference, right? And I don't mind that because I would say this to a face because I said it in the chat when we were talking, right? He used to worry about the common man. Now he worries about which hotel he can get the best points at when he stays at, right? Because he's on a different level of stuff, and he realizes that you can't affect everybody unless you're a certain level of rich or poor. Now you can do your part, but that's not the same thing, right? Like, college doesn't just make you more liberal. It actually can have the adverse effect where you realize that one man can affect some, but not everything. So what I mean by that is that, like, how idealistic these teachers probably were when they came into this school, when they said, like, man, a group of teachers, 43, they said 43 academic personnel, right? 43 people can affect hundreds of kids. You're going to, if you have that hypothesis in your head, you're going to probably come to the same conclusion I came to before you hear why things didn't go as well as they thought they did. But you would hope that some of these teachers maintain that now, but some of those things can sober you. They can bring you down to earth when you have an idealistic idea of what you can accomplish without having to accomplish that yet.
Families in serious need. It instilled hope in the family of those attending the school.
Who's gonna help him and stuff, with his problem, like with his reading, everything.
But now the issue, and the very big issue at that, is actually educating the kids. The way that students from the Ipromise school were selected was through a lottery consisting of second graders from the bottom 25% of achievement levels in Akron, those classified as academically at risk. The lucky 120, or technically 240 because it was 3rd and 4th grade for the first year, would
exactly where I think things. So me and Umar and I do not agree on a lot. We agree on some things. We do not agree on a lot. One of the things we do agree on is that there's a group of people, there's a group of black people who just cannot be saved. And the effort it takes to save that group is not worth what it takes to save the rest of the people who come along with the program, right? And I'm gonna give you what I mean, right? They started with second graders. I'm not saying that those second graders could not be saved. Please listen. Please take a second to have some nuance. I am saying the kindergartners who would have been in this program, if they had just started with kindergarten, no 1st grade, no 2nd grade, no 3rd, no 4th, I get that's the point of what they're trying to do, right? But if you had just started with kindergartners or preschoolers, instilled in this with them and those families before they even got the opportunity to fall behind with that extra funding, you may have seen an incredible result. It is so hard to get people to maintaining or changing habits is so much harder than creating habits. Having kids who have never done a thing and they've gone 4 or 5 years, trust me, I know 4 or 5 years of not doing a thing and then telling them to do a thing is so much harder than just starting a group of kids on doing a thing, right? So they started this school with second graders who were already behind. They said some of these kids in the 2nd grade were at a kindergarten level. You should have just started with kindergartners. But I get what the goal was. The goal was to help save kids who would have gotten lost by the system. But you know as well as I do, people will not be grading these children as children who are behind. They will be grading them as just children in the grade that they're currently at.
Get placed into the Ipromise school and receive nice perks like free uniforms and more serious ones like jobs for parents. All of these children came with baggage, and a lot of it. It tended to be the reason even that they were low achieving. They weren't able to focus on class because they were acting out. Oftentimes, this was because they had unstable home lives, with families not knowing how to prioritize education because they hadn't been down the path themselves and were busy worrying about other things. Take Nate, for example, a kid who was showcased on LeBron's Instagram story, who began at a kindergarten reading level. If something got too frustrating or intense for him, he would get up and walk out of the classroom. His teachers would say that he was so behind, not because he wasn't able to learn, but because he wasn't spending enough time in class. The lady who we saw from before was Nate's grandma, who lives with Nate's mom and her 7 kids. What happened to the dad?
And his friend set him up. They stabbed him, shot him, ran him over. They stabbed him with a stone.
On top of that, Nate had experienced this.
Think about what that situation is, right? One mom, 7 kids, right? I'm gonna give you an unpopular. I won't even say unpopular. This is a very popular opinion. This is what I mean by the difference between like what a coon would say and what a normal human being would say. Even if you had 2 involved parents, 7 kids, if you're poor, right? Even if you're rich, right? Like, I know Phillip Rivers got like 1 billion kids. Hey, shout out, old man Rivers. But like, those younger kids aren't getting the same amount of effort as those older kids could get as they add more kids. And those are millionaires, and they're able to focus and add extra tutoring, right? So they can supplement that, right? These are poor people, and they have 7 kids. Even if he had a father, which what his father sounds like, right, is that his father does not sound like he was an upstanding gentleman. I'm not saying anything about the kids, right? I'm saying that I've never been set up. I don't fear being set up because I go to my construction job every day. I don't do anything on the side, right? And I find it difficult to raise 4 kids. What do you mean telling me that you got 7 kids and you out there shaking and moving, and now one person, and obviously the grandmother, think about the grandmother now, let's say she only had the 1 kid. I don't know the history of that, right? She had 1 kid, tried to raise her kid as best as she can. She was probably poor. She was probably in a situation. And her daughter had 7 kids. That's a lot of burden to put on somebody, right? There's no way that these kids are growing up in a conducive environment to education because they have other things to worry about. That's not their first priority. This kid's already behind, and he can't get the extra tutoring at home. School would have to live it. A boarding school would be the only option at this point. Like if it was LeBron Ipromise boarding school, maybe, where they're out of that situation in general, where they can have some semblance of structure. You can't throw money at a problem that starts at home. You can't fix a problem in 8 hours that takes the entire 24-hour cycle to finish. You get what I'm saying?
Rate in his apartment complex after his uncle had been caught selling drugs. He says that he wasn't scared, but it's clear the experience impacted him.
Police, put your hands up!
Nate is just one of such cases, and in a classroom, one of 20. In another class, there was a little girl who felt so unsafe that she would lock herself into one of the very fresh and new lockers at the school. After a few weeks with the kids, one teacher admitted,
you have the romantic thoughts, like, I'm gonna change the world. So when you get in and you have 20 kids who struggle with school and you have some kids who have behavior issues, you kind of be like, okay, well, this is a little harder than I thought.
Now, I'm not going to reveal all that happens for the documentary if you're looking to watch. But at the end of the day, it ends with phenomenal news that 92% of kids met or exceeded their expected state growth in both math and reading. And on average, the kids moved from the 1st percentile in English to the 9th percentile for 3rd grade and the 16th percentile for 4th grade. And in math, kids went from the 1st percentile of achievement levels to the 18th. And 4th graders went from the 2nd percentile to the 30th. In that first year, the rate of growth in the Ipromise school was better than 99% of schools nationwide. This
what they said, rate of growth. They went from abysmal to very bad, right? Like it is something to be praised, to improve, but they improved to not only behind the average, right? Like so far behind the average that this is a very hard thing for me to hear personally, right? Just because like when you think about percentiles, right? Like let's say you test it into like the 90th percentile, you're like, man, that's 10% of people better than me, right? I had never considered that there's a possibility that there are kids out there in the 1st percentile. Like it has to be, right? But I've never been faced with the knowledge, forefront knowledge, that there's a person out there who is in the high school, for instance, right? Who's a senior in high school and who cannot read at a 3rd grade level. Now you have an entire school of that. As an educator, that sounds like it would be impossible, right? Like it's okay if you, and that's the reason why percentiles exist, right? If you're in a school, you expect some people to be smart, some people to be average, and some people to be below average, right? But imagine if you took the worst of the worst and put them in one place. even your best person is still behind the eight ball. Like, I'm not sure as an educator I would be able to deal with that. And to have to do that times 100, times 200. And as you add more students, you're only getting more of the worst. Or this sounds destined to fail.
It was a huge win for Ipromise, and things were looking up. But there were still issues. One, just because kids had met or exceeded their expected level of growth doesn't mean that they were on grade level at the end of the year. It just meant that they at least advanced one grade level in 1 year. There were some big success stories where some advanced further, but overall, many of the kids were still below grade level, advancing to the next grade. And beyond that, there are some more serious issues brewing.
Will it be handcuffed, yes or no?
Summer, which included a 7-week summer camp for the kids, yet another perk, came and went. Despite the behavioral issues and mountain of progress that was still left to be made, the sentiment regarding the school was still tentatively hopeful. There were revisions made to the initial plan of the school, one of the last ones being that they weren't going to add first and second graders like they initially intended to. But they moved on with the next cohort of third graders, and the original fourth graders became the inaugural fifth grade class. And it seemed like the sky was the limit. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. Now see, this is where things got bad. For a lot of us in the US in regular home and school situations, the pandemic was an inconvenience, sure, and lowered work ethics overall. I was a senior in high school and I experienced the strongest dose of senioritis I think one can get, but I came out relatively unscathed. For those in younger grades, the results were much more dire. Over the last 3 decades before the pandemic, 8th graders nationwide have steadily been getting better at standardized math tests, but from 2019 to 2022, almost half of that growth in 30 years has been lost, setting 8th graders in math back literally 2 decades. Now, imagine the
Funny, right? Because this is a good example of what it's meant to, that your home life can be bad, right? Without structure, like the pandemic caused a completely drastic shift. Anybody who had kids at this time, right? Having my oldest in school when all this stuff happened, and you had to take off work because they had online days, and then they had this self-driven learning that if you weren't the soccer mom who had an infinite time off to be able to spend with your kids, a fourth grader cannot be expected to do work on his own. Self-driven work was the biggest scam during the pandemic that I've ever seen. We had to rotate shifts to take time off to be able to get our son, even kinda caught up, right? And I can imagine being a kindergartner during this time or first grade during this time. If you were already behind and you finally had a little bit of structure, it all went out the window, right? Habits take not only time to establish, they need constant reinforcement in order to make them positive, right? If you had them in, finally, oh man, I just needed a chance. I just needed a leg up. I needed a break so I could break through. And then you took that break away and still expected them to achieve at the level I couldn't imagine.
The kids at the Ipromise school, kids like Nate with 6 other siblings, a mom that works nights, and a grandmother. He had to find a place to focus in all of that mess. Or some kids that may have their heat shut off, so they'd have to focus through the cold. A student at the University of Akron did a small study involving 10 teachers who taught at the Ipromise school during the pandemic. The study found that all the teachers had significant issues getting the kids to follow instructions, and a large majority of them believed that their kids were performing worse than expected, while having overall negative behavior. There have been studies done about the disparities that were exacerbated in the pandemic between high-income and low-income families. And that was the same in the Akron School District, a lower-income district. They also suffered from what's known as learning loss during the pandemic. The amount of failing grades in math went up by 9%. And chronic absenteeism also went up drastically. Now, imagine kids in the bottom quartile of this district in a situation like this. The ones that were hard enough to keep in the classroom during regular school. There wasn't any way this was going to end well. And it was a nasty halt to the momentum that had been building up. The kids that needed food and support had to now rely on teachers and employees driving around Akron, delivering them lunches and face-to-face communication. One teacher knew the route to
I'm already about 30 minutes into this, and we're only about halfway through the video, so I am going to break this up into 2 parts, but I do think this is important, right? There's some things you can say about America that are great, there are things you say about that are bad, right? Community is the greatest thing that could happen to any of us, and the pandemic really rocked a lot of what we had going on, right? If you already have failing institutions, and then you take away a lot of the community that those resources and those communities had in the first place, you're only going to get worse, right? When we come back to part 2, I just kind of want you guys to think about a lot of if your kids were in a situation in which you had to be away for long periods of time, would they succeed? You know, a lot of people who are big advocates, this is unrelated to this video until I introduce it now, right? A big advocates of school choice, when they use those words, what they really need to say is like, hey, I am in a place in my life in which I can do more for my children than you can. I would like to be able to extract resources from where you live and apply them somewhere else where they have better resources. That, like, I'm giving an example, right? So you know that you would be the poorest person in the richest part of town, but you would be the richest person in the poorest part of town. So you buy the biggest house there, and you know the schools around there aren't the best that they can be. And instead of paying for private school, right, you say, what if I could make legislators give me a coupon to send my kid to the best school in the state, right? I'm smart enough to be the richest person in the poor part of town. That means I'm probably smart enough to look at loopholes and think ways around things, right? That's kind of what they're trying to do, and that's what you got to realize, that you've got to do the same thing for your kids in a certain respect, and I kind of respect that, right? But the reason why a lot of these institutes, like charter schools and that nature, don't necessarily work in the same way is because your home life determines a lot of what your schooling is. I'm a big proponent that private schools don't necessarily mean you're going to get a better education. It's just that people who have good home lives tend to go to private schools, right? So we're going to link up real quick and do the second part of this video. So thank you for joining me for this first 30 minutes. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll do part 2 of the LeBron James Ipromise schools. 1.